Welcome to Discoveries County, where we walk the paths of hardworking folks who share the stories of their lives and businesses. I'm your host, Valley, and I'm here today with Anthony Carnevale and Ashley Carnevale. You are a board member of the Cajon Valley School District, and you are an advocating parent. So I would love to hear from you guys today. You are rooted in East County. You grew up there, right? So you know the ins and outs of what's going on in our school districts. And so I'm just going to give it to you guys to take it away. Tell us what's going on.
All right. Well, this summer there was a major Supreme Court ruling that upheld the deeply held religious beliefs of parents in the public school system. And I know a lot of folks don't typically associate deeply held religious beliefs in school systems, but there's actually been a few federal court ruling and Supreme Court ruling that upholds these rights for not only families but also teachers in the public school system to not be forced to do things that would violate their deeply held religious beliefs. So that's something that Ashley and I have endeavored to make sure families are aware of, because in Cajon Valley, I would wager that we have a population of families who are probably more religious than the neighboring districts, and not just Christian religion, but Muslim and other religions as well. And it's important because these parents, especially in the last 5 years, when school has started to become a place where, especially groups like the teachers unions think that this is the forum for us to teach kids about our ideology with regard to pharmaceutical interventions or surgical interventions at a public school. And parents are coming to us and saying, I don't feel comfortable with my kid learning about this.
Yeah.
And the Supreme Court ruling, Mahmoud versus Taylor, just upheld that basically any of these books, any of these curricular materials, especially LGBTQ type curricular materials that may violate the deeply held religious beliefs of parents, schools have to notify parents prior to and give them the option to opt out.
Is it like a 14-day rule, or what's how many days notice do parents have to have, and how do they notify them?
They have to notify them by showing them the curriculum that they intend to teach. That's a good question about the rule. With our sex ed curriculum, it is a 14-day rule.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
How is that not sex ed though? Otherwise, like I feel like that would fall under the 14-day rule. At least give them 2 weeks to see it. A lot of things come home and go through the emails, and I might take a couple days to open it. To get to it from work, but they should give them more than 24 hours, you think? Or
Yeah, I agree with you. 24 hours would be unreasonable. 14 days would be within the realm of reasonable, and what other, notification policies, in line with other notification policies.
I've seen you guys online. I know you do your chat. Is it Coffee with Carnevales?
Coffee chats.
Coffee chats, yeah. And you guys kind of go over the topics, the things that you're advocating for. And so what are some of the things that you've recently done, Ashley? Because I know sometimes you're really fighting hard out there. You might feel like the one person standing on something, but you're representing a huge community of people that maybe are afraid or can't speak out. Tell us some of the things that you've had to go through lately.
I think something that has been commonly misconceived about us is that it's parents against teachers. And what we've seen is retaliation against not only parents who speak up, but also teachers who do.
Okay.
And that comes from the activists in the teachers union. Not all teachers, but there are a lot of teachers that actually side with us, that reach out to us and say, hey, we can't speak up because we're afraid for our jobs. And so something that we have been trying to spread awareness to is that teachers can also pull out of the unions and they can be protected, and there are ways to do that. So if they feel that their personally held religious beliefs are being violated, just like parents, there is a way to protect them too.
Yeah, that's got to be tough, because you're already doing one of the hardest jobs in the country, in my opinion, as a teacher. You're not getting paid the way you should for what you're doing. There's so many challenges behind the scenes that we don't necessarily see as parents that they go through. And I know a lot of teachers, and I've talked to them, that the struggles that they go through, on top of now they're having to teach something that kind of conflicts with their spirit, right? Or conflicts with their morals, and having to say, no, I don't want to do this. And now you're faced with consequences. And so that you guys help them advocate or navigate through those things?
There are resources for them that we can share. then there are also, similar to the Supreme Court ruling you were talking about, there are Supreme Court rulings for teachers and coaches that have been put in similar situations. Like California, just a few hours north of us, a female PE coach said that it violated her beliefs to lie to parents
Yeah.
and to allow boys and girls locker rooms. She got fired, and it took, I believe, almost 2 years, but she won in her case too. So I think what's happening on the local level is you'll be told, or maybe not told, but your rights will kind of be, you'll be told they don't exist when you
Yeah.
reach out to the districts, like, oh no, you don't have access to that, but you do absolutely, as a parent, have access to not only the curriculum, like Anthony was saying, but also teacher training materials, because some of that is really conflicting as well.
So you can see your kids' teacher's entire like syllabus lesson plans. You have access to them if you request them.
Well, and trainings that come from the district and trainings that come from contractors. You know, as taxpayers in the district, you even have access to a lot of these as public records. And you can probably explain the public records request process a little bit
Yeah,
better.
how to do that.
Yeah, there's the California Public Records Act request, but when it comes to your child and their educational record, it's federal law. It's called the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA. And parents have a right to review their child's educational record, but the Privacy Act part of it is also that nobody else without a legitimate educational interest has a right to your child's educational records. And there was a landmark, so that was I believe a state court case, what you referred to, the teacher up north, and then there's a landmark federal case in Escondido, just north of here, two teachers who said it violated their deeply held religious beliefs, that the district instructed them to call elementary students by their preferred name and pronouns in the classroom, and then if the student wished to tell the parents, call the kid by the name their parents gave them to the parents, so to live this double life. And that was struck down, which actually impacted policy for all public school districts, because there was this policy that came out that basically tried to create a situation where public school employees could keep secrets from parents. Well,
Yeah.
that whole thing is totally runs afoul of the Family Educational Rights and
That
Privacy
still
Act
exists in California though,
federal
right?
law.
Like they have to, they can't tell the parents the kid's identity at school, right? Is that still exist?
That federal court ruling for Escondido, I believe, changed that. And any school that is instructing their teachers to do that would
Violate that rule.
be probably in violation of that rule. Yeah.
Okay.
However, many
Because,
of them
again-
do still have that rule on their books, right?
Yeah.
Many districts have that policy on
Yeah,
their books.
unless it comes across the table where they have to go
Some
against
districts have made it non-enforceable. Like Lakeside has made it non-enforceable. So that protects their teachers' beliefs as well. So
Okay.
they're not forcing their teacher to violate their rights.
then. Okay.
So that's FERPA is a huge one for parents. Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, then the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment, which is also U.S. code. That is what establishes, and there's also state law that establishes a parent's right to review curriculum. I often quote Governor Newsom because he had this moment of clarity when he was giving a press conference inside of a school library in August, and the AC wasn't working, and the thing had gone on like 30, 40 minutes. So somehow in that, elevated temperature environment, he had this moment of clarity after he'd spent the whole summer going through California law, having the top minds in the state do this. And he said, we have a responsibility as a state. School districts have to have significant parent engagement when it comes to changing or adopting curriculum. It's actually in statute.
Yeah, that's common sense, I think.
Yeah. And that part, parents will go to their school and say, let me see the curriculum that will be used to teach my child this year. And in local districts, including ours, we've heard parents are told, well, that's copywritten. You can't see it. That does not exist for a parent.
So how do you force them though to comply and give you, even if they push back and say you can't, you're not allowed access to that? How do you force them?
Put it in writing? Email your school's principal. Say, I want to see all the curriculum and associated teacher training materials that will be used to teach my kid this year. They should make it available to you at the school or send you a packet, or better yet, what I've been working for in Cajon Valley and our sex ed curriculum is like this. You can actually go online and see it. Um, that so they have to accommodate that, and if they don't, just make sure it's in writing. And if you have the time, I know a lot of parents don't, you can file a uniform complaint with the district if they're not allowing you to see. This is public instruction again. So the California Department of Education basically oversees all the public school districts. Every department at the California Department of Education, which you're familiar with the California Department of Real Estate, so
Yeah.
it's kind of similar. Um, every department at the California Department of Education is something of public instruction. And what I've been able to do on the school board, when I see that they're, doing these universal mental health screenings for third graders, or as part of their social emotional learning curriculum, they're teaching kids, introducing kids to a book about a 5-year-old who's going through a gender transition journey. The question that sort of cuts through it all and puts a stop to a lot of this stuff as it was coming in was, how is this public instruction? When did the board adopt the curriculum? And did we have significant parent engagement in the adoption process as required by California state law? And I've watched $3 million contracts that they adopted with these quack groups who are going to do, measure the happiness levels of every kid in the district somehow with no prior experience. Just go away. Oh,
Yeah.
never mind. We don't want to share that with you. We'll just walk away from our $3 million contract.
They
you guys
walked
approved.
away from the contracts when Anthony insisted that they had informed consent from parents. They were like, well, we can't. If we do that, we won't get as much buy-in from parents.
Yeah, obviously.
Well, then don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're gonna
Especially out
if you're
here.
gonna veer into like medical stuff or psychological screenings, first of all, public school is not for that. It's for delivery of public instruction. So if you're going over here into the medical realm, where's your informed consent? Where's your independent review board? Oh, you don't have one. Well, sorry,
Sorry.
you can't even pass go at that point.
I definitely feel like advocating for your kid is important. Being active in what is going on in their school, what they're learning, because they're there for so long, they're in schools and in class for so long, that I feel like it's your job as a parent to be educated on what they're learning, right? But it's definitely not the faint of heart for the faint of heart, because it can get discouraging, because they're not going to openly, willingly, and just give it to you when you request it. There's always going to be a fight. So you do have to be willing to put up that fight and put the time in to really learn what's going on. And when we were online learning and you can hear everything that's going on in their Zoom classes, that's one thing. But now they're away from you and they're in someone else's reach, and so it's important to talk to them and figure out what they're learning. How can if somebody's like curious of what other actions can be taken if they want to get involved, how can they find you guys? How can they reach out to see what's going on locally, to just follow you and learn from you guys? Where do they find you?
Our last name is kind of hard to spell, so it's Carne, V as in Victor, ALE. Coffee chats with the Carnevales, Ashley Carnevale, Anthony Carnevale on social media. That's an easy way. And yeah, we're happy if parents are struggling with gaining access to information they very much should have access to in their child's school, to let us know, and we can help them navigate the system. But really, it's email the principal. If you don't get anywhere there, email the superintendent, and just keep a paper trail, and know that you do have an absolute right to review what public instruction your child is being subjected to. You have an absolute right to review the educational record, which isn't just their grades and their transcript. The educational record is any official or unofficial record, any note that's jotted down by a school employee about your child is part of their educational record. So you should absolutely have access to
Interesting.
that as a parent, and nobody without a legitimate educational interest should have access to that, which is important to know, because we see a lot of how the government uses like NGOs to do a lot of things that we kind of assumed the government was doing. It was the same when I got to the school board. There's a lot of these outside non-government organizations who were establishing direct contact relationships with the students
Oh, wow.
in the district, and then soliciting them for donations, soliciting them for activism. That's totally inappropriate and
Yeah.
a violation of the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. So it's important that parents know that, but also understand that you may be told that, oh, you can't see that curriculum because it's copywritten, and that's
Not
totally
true.
invalid. Just
And they can
press
opt out,
forward.
right? A lot of times they can opt out of learning a particular subject. You have the
Yeah.
right as a parent to opt your kid out without punishment for
Yeah,
that.
the Supreme Court ruling just established that for everything, because California tried to say, and there was this issue in the Lakeside School District where our nephew goes, where they had a third grade textbook, and one page of it was just, it had 4 people on it: Harvey Milk, Chaz Bono, and two others. And the only Harvey Milk was a California elected official, and if you want to talk about the history of, you know, figures who were influential in the past, you can do that in elementary school, but I don't want you talking to my elementary schooler about Thomas Jefferson's sexual proclivities. That's
Yeah.
not like,
What?
why?
Just leave that part out
You
of the
know?
book. Yeah.
But this whole page was dedicated just to, here are these people in history, and here were their sexual proclivities, or what
Like it
what they
matters.
did in third grade. I think the Lakeside District figured out a way to work around that, but at the time, the California state law was basically that you as parents, you didn't have a mechanism to opt out of that because it's part of social studies and you're learning about these people. Now with the Supreme Court ruling Mahmoud versus Taylor, every parent in the country has an absolute right not only to be opted out of that, but to be notified that this is the subject matter we're teaching. So that's good for parents to know.
Yeah.
And I would add too, in addition to the parents getting involved, I mean, I know parents, especially here in Southern California, there's often both parents are working long hours, you know, just to put their kids through, you know, give their kids the life they have. So it's hard to show up to board meetings, and it's hard to really get involved and dive into the curriculum. And it's difficult to run for school board or go on
Yeah.
social media every week and talk about what's going on. And so not everyone's going to be able to do that, but everyone can bring their different strengths to the table. So whether you are a parent of a public school kid, you have your kids in private school, you homeschool, you're a grandparent, you're a neighbor, maybe you can offer to babysit so somebody can go to a board meeting.
Yeah, good
Maybe
point.
you can, I know that there are a lot of friends of ours that volunteer to host like a sunshine club at a school. So there are different ways you can get involved. Even as a parent, just getting involved in the parent clubs on campus. You're there, you have your eyes on campus, you can meet the staff, you can get to know the parents. I think that's a huge thing too.
Yeah.
So again, it's not always going to be getting involved in politics or studying Supreme Court rulings. That's not everyone's calling.
Yeah.
Anthony's great at that, great at contracts. But for other people, there are ways to get involved and support parents and support our
that.
schools. And especially parents that have the blessing of pulling their kids and putting them in private or homeschool, I would say that doesn't mean you can turn a blind eye.
Yes.
Because these kids in public school are still our community. They're still going to be your kids' peers. They're still going to be their coworkers. That, you know, they're all going to grow up. And as long as they stay here in East County, those of us that grew up here, you see people you grew up with everywhere.
Yeah.
That's
true.
still their community. And
Yeah.
so we need to still all work together to keep our schools great.
Yeah, I agree. Oh gosh, I love it. I could talk to you guys forever. I think we're a little bit out of time, but thank you guys so much for coming in, doing everything that you do for the community. From the bottom of my heart, I really do appreciate it. And we're behind you. Keep up the good fight.
Awesome. Thanks
All
for
right,
having us.
thanks for having us.
Thanks for watching Discoveries County. We'll see you next time.